My name is Jack Thompson, and I've always had a fascination with animals. When I landed a job as a zookeeper at the Arcane Zoo, a small, obscure establishment nestled deep in the woods, I thought it was a dream come true. I had no idea that my new job would quickly turn into a nightmare. The first few weeks were standard enough. I was introduced to the various animals, learned their feeding schedules, and got to know the small team of zookeepers and caretakers. The zoo was different from any other I'd seen. It was old, with Victorian-era architecture, and seemed to have a life of its own. The air always felt a bit colder than it should, and the shadows seemed to linger just a bit too long. The daytime exhibits were normal. We had lions, tigers, and bears, typical zoo fare. It was a humble place, but the animals were well cared for. My mentor, an older zookeeper named Carl, was a quiet man who spoke in cryptic phrases. He often warned me to never stay after closing time, but never explained why. "Carl, what's the deal with this place?" I asked one evening as we were finishing up. "Why can't we stay after dark?" He gave me a long, hard look. "You're new here, Jack. Some things are better left unknown. Just do your job and leave before the sun sets." His warnings intrigued me more than they scared me. One night, curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to stay behind and see what Carl was so secretive about. I hid in the shadows of the reptile house as the last of the staff left for the day. As dusk fell, the zoo transformed. The air grew colder, and a dense fog rolled in, shrouding everything in an eerie mist. The usual sounds of the animals quieted, replaced by an unsettling silence. Then I heard it, a low, guttural growl that sent chills down my spine. It wasn't coming from any of the daytime enclosures. I followed the sound, my heart pounding. It led me to a part of the zoo I had never been to before, an area hidden behind tall, wrought iron gates. The gate was ajar, and I slipped through, feeling a sense of dread wash over me. The path wound through thick trees and overgrown brush, and soon I found myself standing before a large, dilapidated building. It looked like an old manor with boarded-up windows and a door hanging on its hinges. I could hear strange noises coming from inside, growls, hisses, and whispers. Against my better judgment, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The interior was dark, the only light coming from the moon filtering through cracks in the walls. The air was thick with the scent of decay. As my eyes adjusted, I saw cages lining the walls, each one housing a creature more bizarre and terrifying than the last. In the first cage, a creature with the body of a lion and the head of an eagle paced back and forth, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. In the next, a serpent with wings coiled around a perch, its scales shimmering like oil on water. Further down, I saw what looked like a giant spider with the face of a man, its many eyes watching me intently. My breath caught in my throat. These weren't animals, they were monsters. I had stumbled upon a hidden menagerie of creatures straight out of myth and nightmare. "Enjoying the sights?" a voice said behind me, making me jump. I turned to see Carl standing in the doorway, his face grim. "I told you to leave before dark." What is this place?" I stammered. "This," he gestured to the cages, "is the night zoo. These creatures only come out after dark. They're dangerous, Jack. They're not meant for this world." I was about to respond when a loud crash echoed through the building. One of the cages had burst open, and a creature with the body of a wolf and the wings of a bat leaped out, snarling. It lunged at us, and Carl pushed me aside, drawing a large silver knife from his belt. He slashed at the creature, and it howled, retreating back into the shadows. "Stay behind me," Carl ordered, his voice steady despite the danger. "We need to get out of here." We made our way back to the entrance, but the creatures were restless, their eyes glowing in the dark. As we reached the door, another creature, a massive, shadowy figure with too many limbs to count, blocked our path. Carl didn't hesitate. He charged at it, knife raised. They clashed, and I took the opportunity to slip past, running out into the night. I didn't stop until I reached the main gate of the zoo, my lungs burning and my heart pounding. I turned to see Carl limping towards me, bloodied but alive. He pushed the gate shut and locked it, then collapsed against it, panting. What just happened? I gasped. Carl looked at me, his eyes weary. Welcome to the real Arcane Zoo, Jack. This place was built over 100 years ago to contain these creatures. They're not from our world. The original founders made a pact to keep them hidden and protect humanity. We're the last line of defense. Why didn't you tell me? Because it's dangerous. Knowing too much can get you killed. Now you understand why we can't stay after dark. I nodded, the reality of the situation sinking in. What do we do now? We do our job, Carl said, standing up. We keep them contained and make sure no one else finds out. It's a thankless job, but someone has to do it. The next few weeks were a blur of learning and survival. Carl taught me everything he knew about the creatures, how to feed them, how to repair the cages, and most importantly, how to defend myself. Each night was a battle, but we managed to keep the creatures contained. One night, as I was making my rounds, I heard a strange noise coming from the deepest part of the zoo. It was a low, mournful wail that sent shivers down my spine. I followed the sound to a large, heavily reinforced cage I had never seen before. Inside was a creature unlike any other, a massive, hulking beast with dark fur and glowing red eyes. It looked at me with an intelligence that was almost human. "What are you?" I whispered, more to myself than to the creature. The beast growled, and I took a step back. As I did, I noticed a plaque on the cage. It read, "The Guardian, do not release under any circumstances." I hurried back to the main building to find Carl. "Carl, there's a creature in the back. It's labeled the Guardian." "What is it?" Carl's face paled. "The Guardian is the most dangerous creature in the night zoo. It was brought here over a century ago to protect the other creatures and keep them in line. If it's making noise, it means something's wrong." We ran back to the Guardian's cage. The creature was agitated, pacing back and forth. "What's wrong with it?" I asked. "I don't know," Carl said, his voice tense, "but we need to find out fast." Suddenly the ground shook, and a loud echoing roar filled the air. The other creatures in the night zoo began to stir, their growls and howls creating a cacophony of terror. The Guardian roared again, and the cage rattled. "Stay here," Carl ordered. "I'm going to check the perimeter." He ran off, leaving me alone with the Guardian. The creature's eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment I felt a strange connection, as if it was trying to communicate with me. I took a step closer, and the Guardian's growling stopped. It tilted its head, watching me intently. I heard a crash from outside, followed by Carl's shout, "Jack, get out here now!" I ran out to find Carl grappling with one of the creatures, a massive wolf-like beast with fiery eyes. He was struggling to hold it off with his silver knife, but the creature was too strong. Without thinking, I grabbed a nearby tranquilizer gun and shot the creature. It howled and collapsed, giving Carl a chance to escape. "Thanks," he panted, blood running down his arm. "They're getting out. Something's wrong with the barriers." We ran to the control room, where the security monitors showed chaos. Creatures were breaking free, attacking each other and the barriers. The Guardian's roars echoed through the speakers, adding to the cacophony. "We need to contain them," Carl said, his voice urgent. "If they get out of the zoo, it'll be a disaster." I nodded, fear and adrenaline coursing through me. "What do we do?" Carl pointed to a large red button on the control panel. "That's the emergency lockdown. It'll seal all the cages and reinforce the barriers. But we need to lure the creatures back inside first." "How do we do that?" Carl grabbed a large silver whistle from a drawer. "This. It emits a frequency that draws them in, but someone has to go out there and blow it." "I'll do it," I said, surprising myself with my own bravery. "Are you sure?" I nodded. "I have to. I'm the one who stayed behind and found this mess." Carl handed me the whistle and a flashlight. "Be careful, Jack, and whatever you do, don't stop blowing until they're all back in their cages." I took a deep breath and stepped out into the chaos. The creatures were everywhere, their eyes glowing in the darkness. I raised the whistle to my lips and blew as hard as I could. The sound was piercing, echoing through the zoo. The creatures stopped and turned towards me, their eyes narrowing. Slowly, I began to walk, leading them back towards their cages. The creatures followed, drawn by the sound. It was working. I felt a surge of hope. Suddenly, one of the creatures, a massive winged beast, charged at me. I stumbled and fell, the whistle slipping from my lips. The creature loomed over me, its eyes blazing. I scrambled for the whistle, but it was too late. The beast lunged, a deafening roar filled the air, and the creature was thrown back. The guardian had broken free from its cage and was charging towards us. It grabbed the winged beast and threw it aside, then turned to me, its eyes blazing with an intensity that took my breath away. For a moment, I thought it was going to attack me, but then it turned and began to herd the other creatures back into their cages, roaring and growling. I grabbed the whistle and blew it again, helping to guide them. Together, we managed to get the creatures back into their cages. Carl hit the lockdown button, and the barrier slammed shut, sealing the creatures inside. The guardian let out one final roar, then turned and walked back to its cage. I followed, still blowing the whistle, until it was safely inside. The cage door closed, and the guardian lay down, its eyes watching me. I collapsed, exhausted, as Carl ran up to me. "You did it, Jack. You saved us." I nodded, too tired to speak. The guardian's eyes closed, and it let out a deep, rumbling sigh. It looked almost content. The next morning, I woke up in the infirmary, my body aching. Carl was sitting next to me, a bandage on his arm. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," I said, managing a weak smile. "What happened?" "You saved the zoo," Carl said, his voice filled with admiration. "The guardian, it protected you. I've never seen anything like it." I thought back to the connection I had felt with the creature. Why did it do that? "I think it saw something in you," Carl said, "a kindred spirit. You risked your life to save us. The guardian respects that." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of pride. "What happens now?" "We keep doing our job," Carl said. "We protect the zoo and the creatures inside it, and we make sure the world never finds out about the night zoo." I spent the next few days recovering, and as I did, I realized that my life had changed forever. I was no longer just a zookeeper. I was a guardian, like the creature I had freed. I had a responsibility to protect the zoo and its secrets. The nights were still dangerous, but I faced them with a new sense of purpose. The guardian watched over me, and I knew that as long as we worked together, we could keep the creatures contained. The Arcane Zoo was a place of wonder and terror, but it was also a place of responsibility and courage. I had found my calling, and I would do whatever it took to protect the night zoo and the world from the monsters that lurked within. For more stories like this one, like and subscribe